Your story is so powerful. I want to say thank you so much for just reaching out and embracing me and my wife and my family in Puerto Rico into this. Like, I'm really grateful to be here. And your story is so important because what I'm going to talk about next is like the details of everything she was saying, like lifestyle, how important that is. So a disclaimer, after just spending time with folks, when I was here, I was like, oh, I need to, my talk kind of kept shifting and shifting and shifting, because I was like, because I really try to listen to what people are saying so I can understand. And this is what this presentation is about. So instead of going directly into just real estate, because I already knew Ebony has way more experience than I do, and she has owned, what, 76 properties? I mean, oh my gosh, that is a feat to, like, I can't even imagine owning that many properties, first of all. And I don't have a desire to do that either. Right. To be very clear. So,
your strategy.
That is not my strategy, and we're going to talk about my strategy now, and then we'll see it. So, my strategy is specifically how I use government tax incentive programs to build my wealth, okay? And that's why when people ask me, are you an entrepreneur? Are you a real estate? Are you a crypto? And I say, nah, I'm a nomad capitalist, and we'll get into that. So, oh, there we go. So, hold on, no, there we go. That's the picture I wanted you all to see. So if you can't see, it says, we work to live, we don't live to work.
Come on.
Get into the black. Me and my wife, when we first got here in 2021, we were yachting around and just spending every evening on the beach. This beach right over here, Condado Beach. And it's just, we heard someone say it, but like it hit different for us, right? Because she has 3 degrees, been working on her life and saving money and just way better at money than I am, right? I just, have been done so much and like cut my teeth so much. I've understand the different vehicles and the experiences that you need to drive these different vehicles to get you to a certain level. So this is a picture, this is my famous pose. I've been doing it since 2019, and a fraternity brother of mine, we went hiking, and he was like, man, let's take a picture. And I don't know what came to me, it was just abundance. I wanted to feel the nature. I wanted to feel like I am one with where I'm at, and I'm with this brotherhood. So this is my abundance pose that I you know what, that's the name of it, abundance pose. Thank you. It was named here, okay?
Where is that here?
So this is actually across the street from my new property. It's called El Toro, which is the bull. So it's the highest peak in El Yunque. So as you can see, all of this over here is the east side of the island, and this is like Fajardo and Luquillo, but it's the highest point of the rainforest. Okay, so my story. How did I get here? So for those who don't know, I'm from Los Angeles, California, specifically South Central LA. And I love repping South Central LA. Everybody seen the movie Boys in the Hood?
Yes.
Okay, y'all remember Trey?
Yeah.
Yeah, so similar storyline, same neighborhood pretty much. We went to the same high school, Washington Prep. We went to Morehouse, same thing. And we had a lot of, I can adapt to, not adapt, but I've experienced a lot of the things you saw in the movie. Of course, it's a little more dramatized, but it's crazy how spot on our lifestyles and how they capture that Ice Cube. And me and Ice Cube did go to the same high school until he got kicked out. Whichever one.
They don't talk about that.
They don't talk about that. So again, that goes to, I went to Morehouse College in 2005, graduated with a degree in kinesiology and sports studies. I currently I live here in Puerto Rico, and I identify as a nomad capitalist. And we're going to get how I started identifying as a nomad capitalist, okay? So, how did I get to Puerto Rico? How did I get to Morehouse? How did I make it out of South Central LA? How did I get here? So, anybody familiar with Stephen Covey? Mm-hmm. Okay, Stephen Covey, habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind, right? So I've studied these types of books all the time. And so Was it not Harvard? It was Stanford. Unfortunately, they denied me when I applied. I did not get into Stanford. They're bad. So no. But I applied to like 72 schools. It was free. I was just putting them in. But they did a whole study about reverse engineering. So I came up with this idea of there's 5 steps to success. When I looked at how did I get everything I've gotten in my life and how I got here, I realized there's 5 steps to success. So traditionally you go, the 5 steps to success is step 1 is information. Information, it's right here in the book. It's speaking, oral traditions. As we grow up as people of African descent, we talk, we do songs. That's where our information is given. It's information at the end of the day, right? But how do you receive and learn that information is what an education is. It's really important that we remove the ignorance, which is not knowing, of what certain words mean, right? Because ignorance just means you do not know, right? Has anyone ever looked at it like this? Information is just words, and have anyone thought about it like that before?
Yeah, I say information is data.
That's it. It's data, but it's useless until you apply it and understand it, right? So you have the education. Sometimes it's formal and sometimes informal. What we're doing right now, informal, right? Compared to society. What's more formal is that Morehouse degree, is that partial Columbia degree, all the degrees and certificates that the society says is deemed to be worthy, right? So what do you get from an education? What are you supposed to get when you get an education?
A job.
Oh, see, that is the answer that they tell you, but that is not true.
Knowledge.
Nope.
You should get
It's a skill.
Skill, yeah, right.
Yes.
It's a skill. And I want you to know it's a skill, okay? So if you get a degree in, say, for example, like biology, right? You know how to study the body. That's what biology means. But if you get a degree in law, what do you know how to do? You know how to read the law, right? So that should turn into a skill to be able to do, to get something what they called a job that gives you what? Money. So my thing is a job, it has so much, like, I'm not thinking job, right? I'm thinking very basic. How do we get to this level? So we got information, right? Y'all can write this down, but I'm going to give you this presentation to look at it later and with all the resources and stuff so you can take a look at it. We got these degrees, so we know how to reference it. We're not stealing nobody information, so, but yeah, so you have information, you turn information into an education, either formal or informal. And then you turn that education into a skill. So if you have a skill of communicating oratorical, you can become a speaker. If you have a skill of mediating people, you become a lawyer or you become a mediator, right? And then that will tell you what? How much money you can make. So now you know which job to get, right? Or maybe not a job, which business to start, right? So now you know how much money does a social worker make on average?
Not a lot.
Okay.
Like 50, 70.
Yeah, depending on settings, right?
Yeah.
That's why I didn't put job, I put skill. Because I don't want anybody to get pigeonholed into the job, because depending on what job you're in, you can be at 50,000 or 100,000, right? And if you're doing overtime and all those different things. So once you get the money, my grandma said, then you can get the honey. But with that honey is lifestyle. Because how much money you make dictates the lifestyle in this society. I'm not gonna go to conspiracy theory or anything else, but we're focusing on the world we live in now. That'll tell you the lifestyle that you can live. So anyone know after what amount of money you make, the studies show that life doesn't really change. Anybody know what that number is? Just say, throw out some numbers, just have some fun. 250,000, anyone else? 140. 140,000. That's it. your life doesn't really change that much. You know, you maybe go on an extra vacation, put a little more money aside, but you're general, you can do the things that you want to do at that rate, right? And most people, if you're in a career, you can hit that in like 5 to 10 years of moving up in management, right? But what changes is how you manage your money and what you're doing with it and all that other stuff. And that's why we're here. So the 5 steps to success is reverse engineer. So let's do this. Let's start with step 1, lifestyle. Okay, so really quick story is I started with lifestyle first. When I was at South Central LA, I was doing all this cool stuff. I was being mentored by the alphas at UCLA. I wanted to go to UCLA because that's where my mentors were going. And I looked at the lifestyle they had and it was cool. So I was like, I'm going to UCLA. Did not have the grades to get into UCLA. And then I saw a Drumline and said, I want to go to Morehouse. Anybody know what happened? Did not have the grades to go. Okay. But I got into UCLA and I got into Morehouse. So I got into a position where I had to choose one or the other. They told me, you can come to UCLA or you can go to Morehouse, but you gotta pick one. UCLA is homegrown. Morehouse is, I had never been there. I'd never been to Atlanta, never been to Georgia. This is 2005, right? So I had to pick. And I watched some PBS special and it was really cool. But I looked at the lifestyle. I saw Nick Cannon and all those guys was living. And mind you, I'm not into drumline and I don't do instruments like that, right? So it wasn't that, it was the lifestyle by being around all those black folks. The little microcosm I saw at UCLA, right? Because I was around all the black folks, right? And so I went lifestyle. And then I said, what kind of life can I get, right? I was like, oh, money. Well, I really like helping people, so I'll be a doctor. I don't really want to be a doctor, but I like sports. Okay, I'll be a physical therapist. So I'm gonna get my degree in kinesiology, the study of human movement, okay? And then I figured that skill, helping people, especially high net worth people like athletes, get me to that 140 before I knew what 140 was, right? And so I was like, well, the education, where's the best place to get that education? Unfortunately, it was not Morehouse College. They barely even had a program that was for kinesiology. But I was so focused on this lifestyle, and I was 18 years old, so I went, you know. But I did get a great education there, and they did their best, and the program actually progressed as I was there. So that was really grateful. And so the information is the information. All right. Any quick questions about that? All right. So, Nomad Capitalist. This beautiful book right here. So all this stuff I've been talking about and learning, I found out that this guy on YouTube, his name is Andrew Henderson, and it actually comes from his dad. So it is, what is a nomad capitalist? Someone who follows global trends and moves his or her money, business and persons to the country or countries where they are treated best. I'll let that sink in for a little bit.
AKA not America.
I can say it.
The best part.
I can say it. It's on you.
Right.
I'm not here to tell you which one is which not. But what I want you to take away from this conversation is where they are treated, wherever you're treated, where you are treated best. Not us, you. Okay, best. All right. So, quick question. Let's get a hands. Let me get hands because I actually want to counter this. Are tax incentives a good or bad thing? Who thinks tax incentives are a bad thing? Raise your hand first. No one? Oh, cool. I'm in good company. All right.
Do some people say yes?
Oh, everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone who does not understand wealth.
Well, that's probably what they hear.
Everyone who does not, yeah, right? So the actual term is not tax incentive. That's kind of more the slang. The actual term is this. It's economic incentive. So what I want you guys to do out of this, and that's why I'm giving you this presentation, because I had all this stuff in my mind. I was like, I gotta give y'all something. So again, hyperlink, right? So you can go and get more details on this information, because this is a lot, but this is my gift to you. So really quick, I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but economic incentives are financial rewards. So financial rewards is what we all are in the business for. Come on. You want to be rewarded
Right.
for doing something, right? If you say hello, you open the door, whatever you do, you want to feel incentivized. So governments, to stimulate their economy, they incentivize their folks and their people to do it. Specifically, the best people to do that are businesses. Anybody know why governments like to work with businesses?
Create opportunity.
Create opportunities for who?
Consumers.
The citizens, right? The government provides jobs for people. Businesses provide jobs for people. Who provide the most jobs for just the average citizen? Is it private or public?
Well, no,
It's private. Private.
Private.
Yes, private businesses, right? Because they are what? More efficient, more likely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a more efficient model. Right?
More efficient model, right? So the way the economic system works is governments say, this is what we're lacking in because our citizens are complaining about housing. They're complaining about lack of jobs. They're complaining about a lack of education and stuff like that. So what the government does, they write policy, lobbyists write it for them, and then they say, okay, this sounds good. This hits the points I need. I'm not going to read that 500-page whatever document is. There you go, right? I did a little lobbying, and I was like, wow, this is what's going on. And so by them doing that, it goes to the business. The businesses create those jobs. That's where you start getting real estate development like we're sitting in right now. This is a tax incentive real estate property we're in right now. This whole neighborhood was one of the wealthy neighborhoods, but it's right next to the largest project in the Caribbean. Okay? And so, it was intent that way to have for the people to come together and mix and mingle, but there's a big disproportion of how they built it, but we won't go into that right now. So, long story short, the citizens will give you the desired response that the government wants. So they create more housing, create more jobs, specific sectors like for young folks and things like that. All right. So there's 4 different types. I told you, I forgot who I was talking to. I think Robert, a few people. I want you guys to take notes on this, but like I said, you're gonna have this. I'm gonna send it out in email. There's 4 different types of economic incentives that all governments do, okay? Anybody know what the first one is? What do you think? I kind of said it already.
Tax.
Yeah, it's tax incentives, right? So commonly referred to as tax benefits, right? So these are where they reduce your tax liability. So for example, if you buy a house, right, and you can write off the depreciation of that house, right, which helps when you have a regular job. For those of you who have regular jobs, this is a tax incentive that you already can take advantage of in America, because the way the tax code is written is that if you have a property, you can depreciate it for 27.5 years, okay? And so that will offset your regular income, which will allow you to keep more of your money to do what? What are you gonna do with that money? Okay, I was like, spend it on what? Hopefully not liabilities. Maybe a little bit though. Maybe a little bit. So mortgage insurance, And subsidies. So these are government incentive projects that allow particular sectors. So for example, solar, energy efficiency, stuff like that. That's where you're gonna see like, okay, we specifically need to get this carbon emission thing in hand, so they have it focused on things like that. Okay. Rebates. Anybody know what the most popular rebate that just came up? 2020. Who got a check in the mail?
Oh, no.
So the PPP.
The little $1,200, the little $1,200 stimulus check.
Stimulus check.
Yeah. Anybody? Was that a good thing or bad thing? It was a bad thing. It was a good thing for me.
Right.
Guess what I bought with it?
Assets.
Exactly. They gave me 100x return. So, again, it's not about the vehicle. It's not all the way about the vehicle. It's about the knowledge, the person behind holding. That $1,200 paid me over and over and over and over and over, okay? So rebates, but what the bad thing about it is very subjective. All this stuff is subjective in a way, and that's what we want to talk about mindset, is that the rebates tend to increase inflation. So that's why now things are costing more, because anybody heard of Mansa Musa? Okay, so the quick story, Mansa Musa was the most wealthiest man in the history of the world, right? He was a king of the Mali Empire. And so he used to travel around the world to all over these places, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, like to the Americas. He literally traveled. There's books and stuff, but you know, they're not gonna talk about that. Mexico and all these places where he traveled and his people traveled. But what he would do, he would give freely. Because what do we do when black folks, when people come to your house? What do you do if someone comes to your house?
Take your shoes off, no.
That is the thing. But what else do you do?
Feed them.
Feed them. You okay? You need something? So that's in our history, right? We got to understand that. So that's what rebates, and what he did was destroy economies. Give you an idea of his wealth. His wealth is, for inflation, was $400 billion. And you know who's the second person that's closest to him? Elon Musk at 200. Still double, right? And that was, hundreds of years ago.
I mean, that sounds a little bit like after the Great Depression, when, you know, all of the welfare systems and all the subsidies and everything came in, and many people argue that they're more detrimental than they are helpful for, I guess, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, because the masses.
Yeah.
The masses don't know what to do,
Mhm.
right? Because what they did was give it right back to Louis and Jordan and other stuff, right? Or they were so much in a deficit, the part we don't talk about, that they had to go pay rent. Because a lot of that money went to paying rent, food, gas, and you know, like that's where a lot of that $1,200 went. But nobody wants to talk about that. They do want to talk about people just giving back to Louis and all that stuff. But I know what it did for me and my family and a lot of folks. It gave us the opportunity to, like, oh my gosh, a little relief, you know? So the other one, the last one, is negative incentives. Anybody know what a negative incentive would be? Anybody remember Obamacare?
Yeah.
That was a negative incentive. You know what the negative incentive was?
Penalty.
You get penalized. So they'll penalize you for not doing something like having health care. Okay. All right. Are they still good or bad?
They're good.
They're good.
For the most part.
For the most part, right? Depending on what side of the coin you want to be on. All right. All right. So quickly, popular countries that have these types of economic incentive are Puerto Rico, as we know, we're here. Portugal is one of the most popular ones that they've done that I know personally a lot of. That's how I found out about all this Puerto Rico stuff, was because of Portugal. They did a really good marketing, especially to the FIRE community. And I know we're going to talk about, did y'all talk about FIRE this morning? Or was
No.
it tomorrow? Okay. So they have the Golden Visa Residency Program. Pretty much if you go there, your income that's like from like stocks or anything like passive income like that is going to be tax free. They have like a 0% tax. Yeah. But you just got to move to Portugal.
Right.
Or, and there's
It's not
other ones.
bad. It's bad.
Oh no, it's nice. I mean, quality of life is on a high index, just overall. But yeah, so Portugal, like I said, Panama has programs, Jamaica has programs. Pretty much every country, a lot of the Mid-Eastern countries have them as well. Oh, did you guys know this? I thought this was a really cool one. So there's states that will pay you to move in 2023. You got Oklahoma, Minnesota, Alaska, Vermont, Kansas, Iowa, Tennessee. They will pay you to move there. More incentivized, slightly different, but they will actually receive grants and stuff to that. And everything, remember guys, it's referenced in the corner.
Could you go back? What qualifies someone to get that?
Which ones?
Any
Any of these?
Yeah.
So a part of it is going back to those 4 steps, right? Figuring out which one, what they're offering. So for example, Oklahoma, you receive a grant up to $10,000, right? That's probably if you, whatever you do. So you just have to individually look at it. That's why I put there, because it was getting too long. But all these are different. So, but I'm gonna tell you really quick, specifically one to Puerto Rico that's much better. Question?
Yeah, really quick. So is there a difference between just going there and living and everything like that, versus bringing your business over there? Like, are there business incentives versus personal incentives?
There's all of them. You just look down the list. Now, I just put this just to open your eyes that you don't have to necessarily move outside of the country or off of the mainland to partake in this, okay? But there's different ones, and I'm gonna show you Puerto Rico offered 21 different ones, okay? And I got a whole slide on that. I'm gonna show you that. So, why Puerto Rico now? I borrowed the title from. I actually got a chance to meet this Adam Greenfield Fader. Yeah, Fader. This is a book I highly suggest. I actually got him to sign it, and this was before my son was born. It says, "To Baby Yo, in every crisis, there is an opportunity."
Right.
So the reason why we moved here, this was summer when we did our yacht with our friends. Yeah, this was just, this is in Fajardo, Icacas and Palomino. We did a little yacht, you know. Your husband Gardner, we can get you a couple boats down here. And so increased our quality of life. That was the most important thing. As a physical therapy training background, I'm always thinking about quality of life. I did most of my trainings with paraplegics and people who have suffered brain traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And so quality of life was a very big thing. I wrote a whole thesis about it to graduate from Morehouse. So that was the thing. And I noticed our quality of life were, even though I had more money, but the pandemic was still happening, but it felt like the quality of life was still going down, you know. And I wanted to pick it back up. So Puerto Rico was the opportunity, was the time to do it. So real quick, the other reason why we moved here, reduced our personal tax liability from 38% to 0.
Wow.
Reduced our business tax liability from 21% to a maximum of 4%. Currently it's 2% right now for me. All right. So this is the cool stuff about the real estate and why Puerto Rico. Now, kind of get you, it all leads up to one point, right? So Puerto Rico leads recovery in the U.S. So if you see here, for lodging, this is all about tourism and lodging, right? All of these states, specifically the Oklahomas, the ones we talk about, they're in the red. They're going negative, right? And actually bringing people to their state. That's why they're incentivizing you to come. They'll give you a $10,000 grant because everybody's leaving, right? And we know why they're leaving. We ain't gonna say it. The cameras is watching. But Puerto Rico is leading that. Why? Right? At 25+% right here. Okay? And this is public information, Puerto Rico. The average daily rate, which is for hotels and short-term rentals, we are catching up to hotels at $241. That's in 2023. And Puerto Rico is actually gaining, the reason why, because the traveler is shifting, right? So hotels, we know, would be very expensive, but hotel people are hotel people. Airbnb people are Airbnb. Short-term rental people they like homes. They don't want to be in a hotel, right? They're two different customers, so this really don't even really match, but they gotta compare it to something, okay? The revenues in the hotel, short-term rental, it's hard to see. All right, so I'll say it out loud. So the blue is the hotel, and the green is independent rental. So that's, short-term rental, private, right? So we're looking at 66.3%. It looks like. Let me see on your thing. I can't see. That looks a little blurry. Oh yeah, 63% are hotels because they still own it. They still have that market share. But the private has 37%. So the total market that we can take a nice little bite out is the 1.3 billion. And so independent revenue for us who are in short-term rentals is about almost $500 million. This is Puerto Rico, y'all. All right. So chapter 5 is what we are currently taking advantage of when it comes, participating in. I don't like using the word taking advantage of. So chapter 5 is, Act 60 was renamed. They put it an overall umbrella of different tax incentive programs that they offer. So you can apply for this and you can get incentives. So we'll talk in detail about that. So who can take advantage of this? Whatever, we're gonna go. Hotels, condo hotels, guest houses, which is what you'll see tomorrow. I have a guest house. It's anything between 7 to 25 rooms. A bed and breakfast is something where someone lives in there and it's 3 to 5 rooms. And then you have timeshares, you have vacation clubs, you have casinos. They all can take a part of this specific incentive. And these are some of the incentives, okay? So, one, you have a flat income tax of 4%, and that 4% is good for 15 years with the option to extend for another 15. So you have 30 potential years of a 4% corporate tax, right? 75% of your property tax your property taxes will be exempt. So you're talking about, say you got $1,000, 750 is exempt. What would that do for your bottom line? Could you stay in business more than 5 years? Because the average business fell within 5 years. They don't make it to 5 years. At least you can be able to get a better chance of making it to 5 years. Okay, 50% value of business tax, so that's just like your municipal stuff. Your construction is put into that budget as well. Your sales tax, so that 11.5% y'all all been paying, we don't have to pay that. That's 100% exempt, okay? But this is the sexy part. This is why I'm gonna do my dance with it, okay? So, 40%, you get a 40% tax credit. Remember those 4 we were talking about, right? The rebates and tax credits, okay? So a tax credit is like a rebate. What this is you take the purchase price, you take all the due diligence and fees and stuff that you're paying, you take the construction, all the permits, because we get our permits, okay? We stay up to date, okay? Because they will call them on you. They might not show up, but they'll call them. Your first year operating budget, your first year marketing budget, wrap that all together, and they'll give you 40% back in a tax credit. And that tax credit comes in 2 ways, okay? One way is, it's just like a little note. You give it to the IRS to offset some of your income from your regular 9 to 5 or other business jobs. The other way you would do it is you would take it to the Wall Street and take it to a broker. They will sell it to some big corporation for 90 cents on the dollar, take their fee, say maybe 3 to 5%. So now you're looking at, let's see, on $1 million, you're gonna get back 400,000 back, and then you take out some percentage. So you'll get about $300,000 back in tax credits that you could either use to offset your income or pay it back off debt or expand your business or whatever you want to, wherever qualifying, it has to be qualifying eligible investments, but there are specifics, okay? And you get that after year 2 of being in business, completing your first year of business, and they break it over 3 years. Any quick questions about that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When it comes to, I guess, the short-term rentals, I'm just curious to know your philosophy on this, because I feel like I understand the boom and I get the economic impact, but I feel like it also is causing a bit of a displacement to homeowners, because, and I even talked to one of my Uber drivers when he was here. He told me that he used to live over here, but because the boom of Airbnbs, apparently this whole neighborhood is now Airbnb, his landlord, he basically was displaced because the landlord told him, like, I'm making X number off of you as a renter, but I can make that in a week if I turn this into an Airbnb, so which he did, and so he can no longer live in this area. So I'm just curious to know, like, what do you think about how the rise in Airbnbs, especially in a place like Puerto Rico, is impacting the actual people that are indigenous to the space and their ability to have affordable housing?
Yeah.
So there's a huge issue about that in New Orleans right now. And the city of New Orleans decided to pretty much try to ban short-term rentals, but the short-term rental industry took them to court, and the short-term rental industry is winning right now. So the court basically enjoined the city from doing it. And what they said was that there's absolutely no data out there that says that short-term rentals displace people. And the reason why is because a person who does, like I told you what my strategy is, right? what you find in real estate, and like I went to a short-term rental conference, and they asked at the short-term rental conference, how many people also own long-term rental? I told you I have 76 properties. Out of that 76, I have 3 short-term rentals, right? 3. That short-term rental is not my strategy. People who do short-term rental are not the same people who do long-term rental. So maybe that person was doing long-term rental, but they didn't want to really do it. So they either were going to sell that property anyway, and then somebody else was going to do short-term rental. The other thing is that short-term rentals are usually not located in areas where there's affordable housing. This neighborhood, this community,
It's never affordable.
it was never affordable,
Yeah,
right?
so they would've never
It
been
was
rented.
never affordable housing. So there is this mindset or idea or thought right now that short-term rental is, but the data actually shows the exact opposite, which is that short-term rental is something completely different. The fact of the matter is, and this is a really important conversation to have right now when we talk about real estate, because people say, well, what about the interest rates? What about this? What about that? Interest rates are high and the prices are, that people thought, oh, the interest rates were going to go up and the prices were going to go down. They didn't. Why is that? Because there's a housing shortage. The housing shortage has
Really
nothing
in the
to
recovery,
do,
is
yes,
it?
housing shortage has nothing to do with short-term rental. Because people are going on vacation either way it goes, right? It has nothing to do with short-term rental. Housing shortage has to do with the fact that, number one, you have companies like Chase, Redfin, major companies. They're buying up properties that used to be properties where in neighborhoods that were affordable, where people could purchase. And these major corporations and conglomerates are purchasing these properties and making them rental properties, making it so that the affordability is no longer there for people who want to just go and purchase a home. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is there's just not enough housing because it's now land is what it is, right? We can't create more land, right? And so we either need to fix up properties, which a lot of times there's no incentives, there's no government incentives to fix up properties. There never was. But there always were incentives to build new construction. So you have places like Chicago and all these other places where they built a whole bunch of new construction and left all of the housing stock to dilapidate, and it fell apart. So you look at all of these cities, and the reason why is because there were no incentives in place. If I know that I can get a tax incentive to build a brand new property, as opposed to fixing up a property, I'm gonna build a brand new property. But now we used up all the land. And so the reason why we have is supply and demand. That's the problem. The problem is not short-term rental. And it's also not the interest rates. And it's also not the prices, right? The prices went up because there's a supply issue. It's supply and demand. They didn't go up because of the pandemic, right? Now interest rates went up because of inflation. But the reason why it's important for you to still buy, even though the interest rates are up, and they didn't really go up, because I told you what I was paying when I first started, right? So now I'm paying 7-8% interest. It's still less than what it was in 2007, 2008. It's just not what it was during the pandemic when I could buy property at 3 or 4%. But when you have a supply and demand issue, something like this is just a different strategy, because if it wasn't this, it would be a hotel, right? They'd be building hotels on the beach if they weren't.
So let's point that out. First thing you said, homeowners. Homeowners ain't got a problem, because guess who's selling to these short-term rentals? Homeowners.
Right.
Renters have a problem. People who don't own have a problem. It's not the homeowners, because we like that you're on. See, the thing is, you have to really identify what the problem is. The core of the problem is much larger than a short-term rental, because what you're saying is, who's going to do short-term rental is not, Airbnb is a marketing company. Booking.com is a marketing company. It's a platform. They don't own anything. Who actually owns something? Who owns hotels? Anybody own a hotel in here? Okay. No one owns a hotel in here, right? Do we consider yourself what, middle class or upper high net wealth individual? No, maybe, yeah, okay, right? So this is the thing. There affecting the middle class, the average day mom and pop. Those who are the people who own most short-term rental, like they use the platform Airbnb. Okay, my friends who own property right down here, they own 7 of them, but they are a family, right? The dad has been on it, CEO, his daughter's CFO, and the cousins, everybody in the family, they're Puerto Rican, right? They own about 30-some houses, right? So the reality is that when you find yourself on the wrong side of the track, you know, you're on the wrong side.
Right.
So now you're trying to figure out, who do I blame? Instead of looking at yourself, I don't walked on the wrong side of the track. I can actually go back to the other side. So to speak on that,
I just
Yeah.
want to kind of add to that, is that unfortunately what happens is that, like Yohance said, when you look at the demographic of who owns short-term rentals, it's not rich people.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's
Not the definition of rich people. No.
It is not, right? It's everyday people that say, you know what, I'm married, we moved here, maybe we can short-term rent our house, and that's going to be additional income.
Mhm.
But I don't know how many of you guys have read the book Cast. There is always, so the book Cast is an amazing book just about how, you know, systems in the world, or really in America, a lot of times it's not so much about race as much as it is about socioeconomics.
Yeah.
And so there's an effort to keep people at a certain socioeconomic status.
Right.
But now we're sitting in rooms, we're doing things like this. We're saying, how can we build wealth? How can we make that 2%, 3%? And that 2% is like,
Right.
So it's the hotel lobby that has this whole narrative out there that short-term rentals, because it's destroying their business.
Yeah.
Not because it's destroying us, right? Because it's making us money. We're learning wealth strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you really have to figure out and look at who creates those narratives a lot of
Yeah.
times, because what happens is when it becomes, one of the things we did in Chicago during the pandemic, in the very beginning, I would sit on these calls for hours and hours and hours, and it's like 50 white guys and me and one other black girl that owned real estate in Chicago, and we were talking about how they were basically in the beginning of the pandemic, they were saying, hey, nobody has to pay rent. Well, wait a minute. If nobody has to pay rent, then they don't have to pay, then how do I pay my mortgage? Like, who else are you
That's
impacting
what I didn't
when you're
get that.
saying that?
I didn't.
Right? They were saying that in the beginning.
Right.
And so what we said is that the image is wrong, because there's far more of us that own property that rent it. It's far more of even these white guys I'm on the phone with or whatever. These are family-owned businesses, like you said, small owners. How do we change that image? So we said, okay, the first thing we want to do, we had a huge marketing campaign, we put a whole lot of money behind to say we are no longer landlords, we're housing providers. So when you talk about who's giving housing and what's going on, we're housing providers.
Language.
Don't call us the landlord, right? We're not the monopoly, the rich white guy with the hat on,
Right.
right? We're this group of people who own in neighborhoods where these large corporations, we don't own huge tall apartment buildings, right? But we own, the Neighborhood Building Owners Association owns the majority of rental housing in Chicago. And that's small. You own maybe 500 units or less, right? You don't own 1,000-unit buildings. Automatically think, okay, it's this rich person right
Yeah.
behind it. It's this person that is, and it is a way to build wealth. It's true. It is
Yeah.
a way to build wealth. But the reality is, the wealth that we're gonna build, I'm never gonna be a billionaire, right? I'm okay with that. I don't want to be a billionaire because I don't want to put in the time, the effort, the work. I don't want to do that. That's not the lifestyle, like Yohance said, that I want,
Yeah.
right? But I'm a millionaire, and I'm going to continue to grow within that.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't continue to grow if every time we have a strategy that helps us, they put on the responsibility of us about displacement. My responsibility is not displacement. If you're worried about displacement, then give the government incentives where you need to give them.
Our job is
That's
to
it.
placement.
Right.
Our job is literally
placement.
placement.
Yeah.
To place you into a place. So specifically, I want you guys to know, and like I said, we're almost done, at least with my presentation, is that when you hear now, you're gonna hear the narrative that Puerto Rico, Act 60 is this really bad thing, and Puerto Ricans cannot partake in Act 60. That is 100% a lie. With a camera, which one I'm looking at? It is a lie.
You can say it one more time. Say it one more time.
For the people in the back, it is a lie. Okay? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and remember Vegas, baby, 21 different programs that Puerto Ricans, and 40% of tax people in Puerto Rico, they're Puerto Rican who are utilizing these incentive programs. They're native Puerto Ricans. So the fact that you think that a few Americans are coming over and partaking in only like 3 of them really, which is the tourism where you see the real estate one, because real estate is very common. Like it's not that it's one of the oldest business and profession there is, so it's easier to get into, right? There's a lot of, you can get loans, you can borrow money, creative finance, it's easier to do. But the one people are talking about the most is this one right here. It's called the Individual Resident Investor Program, and what that is if you are a person that is earning your income from a third party, like you have dividend stocks, you have a business that's paying you distributions or something that way, or you flip things, you buy companies and you sell them, you buy houses and you sell them, or you're doing something that is where you get a capital gain. Buy for $1, you get 10. Well, that is 100% exempt, okay?
There's no income tax.
But the minimum cost on this is $15,000 a year. So I have this one. This is why I came here, because of my crypto, and I thought I was gonna be super, super duper rich. And I was like, oh man, I'm not about to give this all back to the California government. I'm gonna pay them what they worth, okay? And so, and this was the thing that I was like, okay, I'll do this, right? But that puts me in a position, every year I have to pay $5,000 to the government and $10,000 has to go to a nonprofit. 5 of that 10 has to go to a government approved nonprofit. So I can't just pick anyone off the street. You gotta who to call, right? So that's the one that those who are not educated on the 21 different things that you can do, and who are not educated on who's actually taking advantage of this. I went to the Puerto Rico Tourism Summit this year. Guess how many presentations they had in English? Can anybody guess how many presentations they had in English?
None.
Exactly. 0. You know what I did? Just start networking.
Yeah.
I just started networking. Because I was doing my best. I was catching something. I did catch some good stuff. We'll talk about that later when I get here. That I went to a few ones, but it was majority locals, Spanish speaking folks, and we're talking about, and the narrative is that these Americans are coming and displacing us. They're not paying any taxes. They're not doing all this stuff. And the average person, can anybody afford to just pay $15,000 a year and earn their income that way? Can the average person earn their income enough to live off of that way? So why are we talking about that? But if you are the average person that's 35 or under, they have the Young Entrepreneurs Program.
And they even have the difficult to hire program. I don't like an individual that's
Who's difficult to hire?
Black and brown.
Black and brown people.
Right.
People who don't have the education. Okay, there we go. That's much better.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So again, take a look at this. These are things for your personal business that you can look into. And like saying, you have my information. We can talk more details about it. A lot of these, I have people that walk me through it and get you through the application process. that I can pass on that.